Welcome to Inside Out. I am Assaad Mohanna. Our guest for today is the president of LNG at a company that is leading in this space. I'd like to welcome to the show Pierre Bechelany, president of LNG at Fluor Corporation. Pierre, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Assaad. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being with us, Pierre. I want to start off with reading your rich bio here. You are president of liquefied natural gas business at Fluor. You're responsible for global business efforts in the LNG and LNG re-gasification markets. You've joined Fluor in 2010 with more than 30 years in the upstream oil and gas industry. You've had various field roles, including LNG, pipeline, and compression facility, gas processing, enhanced oil recovery, and full field development projects. Really the really important stuff. Prior to your current role, you served as Senior Vice President of LNG and Pipeline. Before that, you were Vice President of Operations for Upstream Business. And in that role, you managed upstream projects in the Middle East and the Africa region. Prior to joining Fluor, you were Principal Vice President of the privately held Bechtel Corporation and General Manager of Pipeline and Field Development Business Line. And you've done that in the US, in France, and in Algeria. You have a Bachelor of Science and Master of Science degrees in Mechanical Engineering from the Louisiana Tech University. I tell you, Pierre, just from reading your bio here, I'm willing to make a bet that you miss traveling just a little bit, don't you?
Right now, in this pandemic, definitely I do.
Well, you've been all over the world for sure. Pierre, let's start with maybe some basics. Why is LNG important, particularly today?
Thanks, Assaad. It's an exciting time to be in the LNG space. I believe the LNG is a bridging fuel for the energy transition with focus on greener LNG. There is a global push for cleaner air right now to reduce emissions, and it will continue to drive the LNG demand. We see accelerated demand of in Asia. 75% of the demand in the next 20 years will come from Asia. And the reason is because they are trying to switch from nuclear generation and from coal to gas, and they're going to need plenty of it. So if you read all the forecasts by IHS, by one of the major IOCs, all believe that LNG demand will grow from 360 million ton to 700 million ton by 2040. It means a lot of LNG is still needed to double the capacity. So where the demand is going to come from, we got Chinese growth, we believe in 2021 will be around 11%. India will grow by around 8%. We continue to see the demand from Europe also at 4%. Mm-hmm. So all this is going to require additional capacity. So where are we on the supply side right now? On the supply side, at the end of 2020, we reached 360 million tons annum capacity. We have around maybe 100 million tons of LNG plants under construction. So we are around, by the middle of this decade, if all goes well and all the projects come on stream, will be around 460 million tons compared to 700 million tons required by 2040. Remember, it takes a long time to develop those mega projects. It doesn't happen overnight. The average duration for an LNG to come on stream is 8 to 10 years. So that tells you we really need to act. We have a lot of work to do still if we want to meet the 2040 demand. Mm-hmm. In addition to this, we got 110 million tons of long-term contracts are going to expire by 2030, which is going to put more pressure on the supply side because people will have to do more and more of this. So completion of projects is key. And whatever we have in the pipeline right now, the 100 million ton we spoke about, needs to happen by the middle of this decade. And if it doesn't, we see a supply-demand gap by 2025. So as long as we can continue to grow, to bring more plant online, I think we can have a balance by the middle of the decade, but we need to work hard on it.
Yeah. Well, first I'll say I was wrong with thinking this is a basic question. It seems like a lot goes into why this is important. But I'm hearing a couple of things, Pierre. First, as the energy transition conversation grows and more funding gets injected into that space, it sounds like LNG is sitting perfectly to be part of that transition, especially as nuclear and coal drop down. But I think you also bring up a very good, basic business concept, and just supply and demand. It sounds like we're short somewhere between 200 and 300 million tons per year, which really says that next 5 or 10 years are going to have to be busy. Otherwise, we're going to find ourselves in a shortage.
Now, if you look at the 250 million plus still not under construction, I mean, you are talking here about, I will say, at least 10 to 15 LNG plants to be designed and built, I'll say, in the next 15 years or so. So we really need to act, and we need more of it, definitely.
Yeah. Pierre, teach us a little bit on types of LNG plants. I know they're not all born equally. What are the different types of LNG projects that you find yourself involved in?
Yeah, until maybe a few years, all the LNG projects, they were large scale, world scale type projects. And I mean by, it ranged, and we call train here, by the way. The train is a stream of LNG that you can produce. And we saw most of this capacity ranging between 4 million tons to 8 million tons. The biggest train was built in Qatar, 7.8 million tons. So those are the traditional projects that we have in LNG. But in the past 4 or 5 years, we saw a lot of companies migrating toward mid-scale LNG facilities. And what I mean by mid-scale is in the range of 1 million ton to 2.5 million tons. And the reason is because the capital intensity, because you may not have a customer who's willing to take 4 or 5 million tons at once. People start looking at the smaller mid-scale solutions so they can reduce the capital intensity of the projects. And we saw a couple of projects, maybe Shell Elba project came on stream a year ago. It's like 10 trains of 0.25 million tons. Venture Global is building a plant right now with 0.6 million ton trains. So we see more and more coming. So we see a lot of the mid-scale. We are working on a couple of mid-scale projects right now. We believe that we can bring it faster, quicker, and cheaper to the market.
Right. Pierre, tell us a little bit about Fluor. How do you differentiate in an LNG world?
I mean, for Fluor, we are, as you know, maybe we talked a little bit about the technology a little bit, but we are technology neutral. We can work with any technology. For us, we don't have to focus. It depends on the client needs. Do they need a mid-scale solution? We can go to a licensor to get the technology, to buy the main cryogenic heat exchanger. That's basically the main kit of the plant. We have experience with large-scale trains, like I mentioned before, as well as we have experience with the mid-scale solution right now. We also provide an integrated approach to our clients. So, and the integrated solution across the whole value chain. And I mean by that, we integrate engineering, procurement, fabrication, construction, commissioning, and deliver a turnkey project to our clients. I mean, the clients, they need someone to take on this challenge, and we have done it. We integrate the fabrication in the design. We bring a lot of the fabrication know-how because we have interest in some of the fabrication yards in China and Mexico. So we do a lot of this work also in-house to make sure we are integrated. Also, we have the ability to deliver mega projects with a global footprint. I mean, we have offices around the globe. We have operated in many countries in the past. So we can bring this mega project know-how and help our customer deliver, what they are looking for. Also, we look at how we can provide modular solution versus stick-built solution. One model doesn't fit all. I mean, every country, every location have its own specifics that you need to study. You take a project in Africa where the labor is cheap, you can just stick build and it become very cheap at the end of the day. While if you take a project in North America, like in Canada, where the labor cost is very high, or in Australia, for example, where you need to take work offsite as much as you can. So we use a modular design approach in order to bring more certainty to the schedule and to the cost of the plant. So that's what differentiates Fluor. We do many mega projects, and we apply the same principle to the LNG solution that we are providing to our customers.
It's great. It sounds like you guys are technology agnostic. You are agile and adapt to the environment you're in. So you have that capability to customize your models, the way you work and provide. And I think it's a great value added. You talked a little about the licensors and the technology. What's the landscape look like over there?
Yes, we work with the main players in this space, and you still need them to basically provide the heat and material balance for the plant based on their specific technology. So we have some customers that have preference for certain technologies. We do a technology analysis if we are selected early in the process, where we can look at the gas composition and then apply the best technology to make sure we have the best gas stream, available to liquefy at the end of the day. As you know, LNG will require low CO2 emission numbers. We have to dehydrate the gas. We have to get all the acid gas removal done ahead, which is a gas processing plant by itself. But we integrate all this. But to go to the main question, we work with the main licensors. We deal with Chart, which they have a mid-scale solution, which we are applying on one of our projects. We're using the Shell DMR technology on our LNG Canada project, which is a Shell project, and we're doing that. Also, we are cooperating with Air Products. I mean, some of the projects that we designed in Mozambique and other places are based on the Air Products. And then also ConocoPhillips has their own technology that we are also studying right now. So we are technology neutral. We can apply it to any project as required by the client, and as we do our own internal assessment of the best technology to use to drive cost and schedule to a better result at the end.
And you did mention Mozambique, and I want to get to that in a little bit, but maybe digging a bit deeper on the technology aspect. Can you tell us what challenges, what pains, or where's the need for technology development today as you see LNG progress in this decade?
Yeah, I think the best place for the technology to continue to develop is in the mid-scale, in my opinion, right now, and in the carbon capture arena. So if you take the mid-scale, it will reduce, the investment and the capital intensity by phasing out. Say, if you bring a project 1.5 million ton of LNG at a time, it will reduce your capital requirement. It will allow you to bring more customers, as you are delivering, as you are building your plant also. So developing further, refining the cost of mid-scale solution, getting a better schedule, better handle on the equipment sizing, I think, and also modularize to the maximum extent, the modular solution, I think it will help tremendously the industry. And that's what we are focusing on, taking and modularizing in a controlled environment, all the equipment, trying to reduce cost, bring more certainty to schedule. That's what we are focusing on.
Mm-hmm.
The other part that I talked about is the carbon capture. And I believe carbon capture needs to develop further. Fluor has that we have our own technology, Econamine FG+, that we've been developing for the past several years, and we have commercialized this. I mean, it's not a new technology for us. Mm-hmm. So we are trying to bring this CO2 emission reduction, to the LNG industry. Okay, and what we're trying to do here, remove the CO2 downstream of the acid gas removal unit, where we can collect all the CO2, and then also remove the CO2 from the post-combustion, where it is coming out of the gas turbines, whether we use gas turbines for power generation in the plant, or we are using it for compressor, the refrigerant compressor turbines. We can collect all the CO2 emissions and bring it to our Econamine FG Plus plant, where we can, take out the CO2 to a certain level, where we can compress and then send it via pipeline for sequestration at the end of the day, or for other uses also. Some people use the CO2 for different applications also, or in an EOR situation,
right,
or recovery situation. So that's where I see those two areas we need to focus on. That's what we are focusing on right now. The mid-scale CO2 emission reductions, I think that will help tremendously the LNG industry to continue to grow and to continue to be the bridging fuel for the energy transition.
Yeah, so nicely aligned with what's on everybody's mind these days, and it's the level of CO2 emissions for sure. And I know you and I, Pierre, talked a little bit about what NOV plays in the space of technology in LNG, primarily in the MEG regeneration space.
Absolutely. I think in integrating the MEG regeneration in the plant, optimize it between the needs on the onshore side and the offshore side, it's part of what we do also. And we need to look more at MEG regeneration, the NOV, MEG regeneration technology to integrate more in our plants, definitely.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about how the pandemic has affected the execution model of EPC contractors, Pierre. And when you build an LNG plant, things must have changed, not just operationally, but also commercially.
I tell you, it was the pandemic, forced us to adapt to a new norm for us. I mean, we are in a situation where we cannot disrupt our work while we are dealing with a new norm like the pandemic. I mean, and I mean by that is when we got hit last March, last year in 2020, it took us by surprise. Everything came to a stop, as everyone else. But had we known what we know today, we could have maybe continued, with taking some measures in place at the time. I mean, it took us some time to adapt, I'll say. Working from home, for example, was a new norm for us because we have teams that collaborate every day, that sit down and work on the design in the home office. It's an interdiscipline, collaboration, and not being face-to-face working in the home office environment impacted the productivity. We're trying to adapt to this. We're trying to find a way how we can improve our productivity so we don't continue to suffer. And I think we made some improvement there. Dealing with the site, I had 3,000 people on one of the sites that we are working on. And how do you ramp down so quickly 3,000 people and just send them back home and keep the site secure and safe, right, while we don't have any work on site? And then going back and 2-3 months later, ramp back up again and bring the workforce. I mean, and while you have to put all the safety protocols in place, we have to implement all the safety protocols such as social distancing and, restricting the number of people on busing. So working in this environment, I mean, we learned a lot. We are adapting, but we are still getting impacted. We cannot deny that the pandemic is impacting us. Every day we have to watch for any outbreak at site. We need to keep the social distancing in place. We need to keep all the safety measures to allow us to continue to operate. We are adapting to it. So when you ask about our commercial model here, yes, it's difficult to operate in an old lump sum environment while you have to deal with all this, where we didn't account for it in our bidding process. So it's difficult, but we are adapting. We are trying to change. We are trying to work in collaboration with our clients, try to find the best way to move forward while we deal with this pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fascinating how the pandemic's made us all learn some new skills and operationally adapt really quick, and even contractually also adapt. For those who are just joining us, this is Pierre Bechelany, president of LNG at Fluor. If you have any questions for the audience, please do drop them in the chat. We will be getting to a live Q&A later in the show. I want to go back to a point you raised earlier, Pierre, about Mozambique. What we heard in the last few days is that Total had declared force majeure on Mozambique because of the political situation over there. How does political instability influence the future of LNG, do you think?
Definitely, the geopolitical situation will influence, the future of the LNG market. I mean, those disruptions, when they happen, basically it takes a long time to recover from. I mean, it's an unfortunate situation in Mozambique, what's happening. I've been following this market since 2012, when we started bidding the first project in this country. And they went through a lot. They try to get this project going. Unfortunately, Total had to demob, but for good reasons, for the security reasons. Mm-hmm. They cannot stay on site. This situation needs to be stabilized as soon as possible. That they have several, I'll say, many projects to come in Mozambique. Mm-hmm. And hopefully they can fix it. We have a project in this country that it's waiting to be, to reach FID also. So definitely it will impact. I touched a little bit on the demand by the middle of the decade. Yeah. I mean, Mozambique project was one of the projects that gonna come on stream by middle of the decade. So delaying this project is gonna have a supply-demand imbalance, in my opinion, and has to be filled from elsewhere. Hopefully, other countries can react and fill this gap. Mm-hmm. But definitely the geopolitical situation around the world, not just Mozambique, will continue to influence the supply side. And trust me, the demand side is not going to let down. I mean, one thing I did not mention at the beginning, even in the pandemic in 2020, LNG demand grew by 1%. Wow. All indication last year that we're going to shrink by 3%. Yeah. But at the end of the year, I don't know if you saw the spike in the LNG prices, because many countries and the cold weather impacted the demand. And at the end of the year, we reached 1% growth in 2020, despite the pandemic.
And it's more indication that it is a energy source that's part of the energy transition. I want to shift us from, maybe bring us back to the US here, Pierre, and get your thoughts on the US LNG market. I know we've seen the last decade plus the shale revolution, but there's a lot of talk about capabilities. importing or exporting LNG from the U.S. Where do we stand with that?
Definitely, I'm sure you're reading a lot. Abundance of gas in the U.S. I mean, we're not short of gas, definitely right now. I think the U.S. will be a swinging market. It will be the market that's gonna at least bring in like 20-25% of the LNG demand. You saw when demand picked up in Asia in last winter, U.S. reacted quickly and delivered what they need in terms of cargoes to Europe, to Asia, anywhere, and kept, we had this little bit, blip here for price increase for a couple of weeks until the U.S. market reacted and sent their ships across the globe. Mm-hmm. So there is plenty of natural gas. LNG market in the U.S. Will be able to compete, in my opinion. There are several projects waiting FID. And to make FID, and I can name few. We got Tellurian, Next Decade, several projects. Cheniere expansion, Freeport, Sempra, Cameron. Several projects that are ready to go to FID, but they are waiting on the market, on the long-term agreements to be signed for them to be able to secure the financing. So I see the U.S. market will continue to grow. I think we will get there in the time. It's a matter of time, in my opinion, before they find the buyers. And as we switch more to gas, as I said earlier, there will be a more demand, and there will be more investment in the space, and they will be able to secure, the contracts they need. I mean, the U.S. is flexible. You see some contracts are linked to the oil index, and some of them are Henry Hub indexed also. So basically, it's a very flexible market, and I think it's a matter of time, in my opinion, for some of the projects to reach FID.
Right. And are those, circling back to the different types of projects, are we looking at mid-size or large-size projects here for the U.S. market, do you think?
We have both. I mean, we see both in the space. Tellurian and Cheniere are looking at mid-scale solutions right now in their offering. You got others are still looking at the big mega trains, the 4 to 6 million pound range. So we have both in the U.S. Still under development right now.
Excellent. I know we have couple of questions coming from the audience. Okay. Before we carry on, I want to see if Shelby Dumaine can join us, our social media specialist. Hello, Shelby.
Hey, how are you doing?
Very good. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's been a great show. I've been really enjoying the conversation so far. So yes. I'm excited to get to the audience questions here. So this first one came from Larry on LinkedIn. And he was wondering what is the biggest infrastructure hurdle that you see as far as the industry reaching those 2030 and 2040 goals?
The infrastructure we need, as you know, maybe we can talk a little bit. You need the whole chain to work together, and we need to be able to supply gas to the LNG plants. So in many places, you need to build the upstream side of the projects, which goes back to what NOV does in terms of from the well all the way to building a pipeline and to build, the LNG plant. So the whole infrastructure needs to be built in order to make this work at the end of the day. In terms of carbon capture, we need to provide a new CO2 pipeline, new CO2 aquifers that we need to capture the CO2 and inject. So all this has to be worked hand in hand at the end of the day, and it cannot be worked in isolation. It has to be done all together in order to make LNG successful at the end of the day. Now you take, beside this chain of, you talk about the infrastructure for the shipping also. We need to have the vessels ready, to ship LNG to their destination. And then we need to have the regasification, which I didn't touch about. We do a lot of regasification work, and it means once you receive the LNG on the other side, you need to have the infrastructure to receive the LNG, to regasify the LNG, and to put it in a pipeline to whether it's a destination to a power plant or an industrial park, whatever. So all this infrastructure has to come together in order to make the LNG market successful.
That's excellent. And kind of going on from that question, the next one from the audience, they were wondering, are there any laws or regulations to help capture flare gas that might help meet those goals, or what are your thoughts there?
Definitely, we are seeing several countries, they're setting zero emission targets right now, and they want cleaner LNG. And that's what those carbon capture comes in play. We need to work on it to meet those requirements. I mean, we are designing plants right now with high efficiency, and how we do this, we're trying to use aeroderivative turbines, for example, where the efficiency is very high. We are trying to use electric drive motors to run to the compressors, which will have really good for emissions. So all this will help us reduce emissions at the end of the day and help our customers achieve their reduced emission targets, definitely, and meet the regulations and the requirements of the specific countries.
Do you think that these carbon capture technologies, at least that we talked about, is that going to be more of a requirement going forward, Pierre?
I believe so. We are seeing 50% of the demand that will be coming in Asia in the next few years. They require certain zero carbon emission. They want to meet this goal, and we see more and more need for this to reduce the carbon footprint, basically. Yes.
So it sounds like you could see LNG be amongst the winners in the, I guess, the energy transition decade here to come. Is that a fair statement?
That's a fair statement. Yeah.
Excellent. So I know you've touched on how this relates all the way back to the well, and that the LNG project is really part of a massive infrastructure that goes all the way back to many, many years. But with perhaps mid-size plants with more agility and customization, it sounds like the recipe for a better LNG application is being formed, at least at Fluor, it sounds like.
Yes, I mean, definitely that's what we are seeing right now. We really need to continue to focus on the large scale also. Depends, like I said, on the client. Some clients would like to continue with large scale solutions. As you just saw, the award in Qatar, for example, they went with 4 mega trains, 8 million ton each. So we will drive both solutions at the end of the day, and it depends on the customer's requirements. We have to study each situation and bring the best value to our customers. That's what we do most. That's what we do every day. I mean, we continue to drive value to our customers at the end, whether it's a mid-scale, whether it's a large scale. But definitely carbon capture from LNG is key driver to continue with the demand growth and to provide the energy transition, path to the energy transition. That's what we need to look at.
Right. It's a necessary step, and not just in the next few years, but the next couple of decades to get into what we call deep decarbonization. And the insight you've provided, Pierre, has been extremely.
We still need power, as you said. We still need power, and power from renewable. It cannot meet all the peak demand, and that's why gas, to power is key right now, and LNG will play a big role in it.
Yeah. Well, Pierre, I would like to thank you for this very, very interesting conversation. This has been a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Assaad, and for inviting me to this podcast. I really enjoyed it. I hope I was able to provide a comprehensive, view of the LNG market, the trends, and what we are working on to make LNG continue to grow in the future. So any other questions that you may have or your audience may have, and please feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have on it.
I think I have a couple of people's names in my mind that would love to learn more about what you guys do at Fluor. And I have to say, Pierre, you're president of LNG. You're from what I heard today, it's more like you're the king of LNG, and it has been an honor to have you and to talk to you today. So thank you for what you have shared with us today. Congratulations on everything that you're doing at Fluor and on your journey. And thank you for being part of this show.
Thank you, Assaad. Thanks a lot.
Ladies and gentlemen, this was our show for today. You've been watching Insight Out live from Houston, Texas. From everyone here at NOV, I would like to thank our fantastic and fabulous audience for your time and for your questions and for your engagement. Thank you, Shelby. And thank you to Kamal, who's behind the scenes doing production for us. Stay tuned for NOV Live. It's coming up next on the NOV social media channels. And until I see you next time with a brand new show on Insight Out, take care.